film it like you've never seen. Hi, I'm Joel Osteen. I have a daily podcast where I talk about overcoming obstacles, accomplishing dreams, and becoming all you were created to be. You may have had some disappointments in the past, but this is a new day. Keep feeding your hopes, feeding your dreams. Use your energy to feed your destiny. Listen to the Joel Osteen Daily Podcast on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Are you ready for best life minus the burnout? I'm Suri Hall from NBC's Access Hollywood, and my new podcast, Hot Happy Mess, is all about the most important VIP. You're the star of your life, so own it. And join us each Monday as we discuss relationships, self-care, career, and much more. Our podcast is for mindful, ambitious, diverse millennial women who are ready for more happiness, laughter, peace, and purpose now. Listen to Hot Happy Mess every week on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Thanks for listening to the Herd Podcast. Be sure to catch us live every weekday from 12 to 3 Eastern, 9 to noon Pacific on Fox Sports Radio and FS1. Find your local station for the Herd at foxsportsradio.com or stream us live every day on the iHeartRadio app by searching Herd.
You're listening to Fox Sports Radio.
Here we go on a loaded Tuesday live in Los Angeles. This is The Herd. Wherever you may be, however you may be listening, Fox Sports Radio, iHeartRadio, FS1, what a pleasure it is today. 1 hour from now, my Herd hierarchy. I thought I was getting hate mail last week. Cannot wait for it. Pack show. What a game last night. Joy Taylor is joining me. How much fun was that?
It was unbelievable.
That's
It was so much fun.
Top 5 Monday Night Football game all time.
We deserved that in 2020.
We did.
We really did. Bad beat, though. Cleveland's always going to come through in some way. Always going to make it happen.
All right, let me start with this. Well, you just keep telling me what Lamar Jackson can't do, and then my eyes keep telling me that's what he is doing. I thought he couldn't throw. I thought he couldn't come from behind. So you're either in the camp that I'm in, which is the dude is special. It's not always pretty, but I love him. Or it's not going to work. So let me give you an example. Phillip Rivers has won 56% of his games. He's the worst athlete at quarterback in the NFL and has been for most of his career. He's got a decent arm, good, not special. And his judgment, not great. Led the NFL in picks twice. 56% of his games. Many of you argue for him to be in the Hall of Fame. Lamar Jackson is the single fastest athlete to ever play quarterback. Nobody looks like him. Judgment, it's actually pretty good. He doesn't make a lot of terrible throws. Now, his arm is below average, but he wins 79% of his games in a really good division. And you guys are telling me, this isn't going to work. I mean, this is not going to work. You keep telling me no, and I keep seeing yes. I'm all about special. 6 to 7 times last night. Minimum. Lamar Jackson did something you cannot duplicate in the NFL. No other player can do what he can do. And I'm saying 6 or 7 times. He did 2 of them back to back. Baker Mayfield had a good night. He didn't do a single thing you couldn't duplicate. That Mahomes couldn't do, Russell couldn't do, Allen couldn't do. And Baker played well. Not a criticism. But you can duplicate that. I can find that on the market. Lamar Jackson's had back-to-back plays at one point in that game. I'm like, in the history of football, the only player that maybe could do it is Michael Vick. Maybe. Are we into special? His quarterback rating last night was 116. Now, I've heard this before. He cannot throw. No, I watch football. Tim Tebow couldn't throw. Couldn't throw. At one point, was 4th on the Denver Bryce, a first-round pick. Was 4th on their quarterback. Depth chart. Colin Kaepernick had no touch. Swing pass, he was throwing a 99-mile-an-hour heater. I have watched Lamar Jackson go 10 for 10 against the Colts defense in the second half at Indianapolis and win. And I watched him last night. I thought he couldn't come from behind. I guess he can. They trailed, he came in. Cramps. Threw him out there, the game changed. There's also these things. Y'all love Dak. There's not a lot of special, but you love the intangibles. Lamar Jackson is a leader. His teammates love him. His coaches love him. He's coachable. He's not defensive about about his criticism like an Aaron Rodgers. He embraces it. I know it's not pretty. I know the slow-mo version of him throwing a football is not exactly NFL films. It's hide your eyes stuff. It's oh, this is painful. And he misses some open throws. But he is so unique and so gifted at so many other things, I don't get the argument. Tebow's career passer rating was 75. Kaepernick's was in the 80s, and you defend him to the end. Lamar Jackson's career passer rating this year is 95, and you're all complaining it's an off year. It's at 95. And that division is arguably, when Joe Burrow was healthy, the best division in football. He didn't get a lot of days off. Phillip Rivers also, who some of you argue is a Hall of Famer, didn't start until 25. Lamar's 23. We're not seeing the best of Lamar. He keeps getting better and better and better. Listen, I always said this about Mike Tyson. When you're a boxer and you scare other heavyweight boxers, Tyson was totally flawed. At the end of his career, he didn't even jab. But you pay to watch Tyson. Tyson was special. Tyson scared other heavyweights. Lamar Jackson, have you ever known a pro athlete? Have you ever been around a pro athlete? I've had a few pro athlete friends, and you play a pickup game with them, and the football player among a bunch of basketball players is so much better than everybody else on the court. Much like Mike Tyson scared other heavyweights. Lamar Jackson makes other professional athletes look so stupid and so inept and so slow. You love Phillip Rivers, terrible athlete, iffy judgment. Decent arm. Lamar's the best athlete in the world. He has good judgment. It looks like crap. A lot of times it looks terrible. But he's got touch. He could come from behind. I don't get it. If you didn't see, by the way, the reason Baltimore won, they trailed when he came back from cramps. Let's give you, if you didn't see the game-winning kick, here it is.
Morgan back to the snap. Sam took the hold. Tucker's kick is traveling down the middle. It is long enough. It is good! And with 2 seconds left to play, the Hayes in the barn, and the Ravens are on top. To make the playoffs with an unbelievable comeback.
It was fun. All right, now let's address it from the Cleveland side. And it's not about Baker. Well, not really. So a lot of you are saying, well, Colin. Lamar was great and stuff, but Cleveland's defense is terrible. Yet the reasons for Cleveland's defense being inept, especially in the back seven, is that Cleveland has such a sad and embarrassing history of whiffing on quarterbacks that when John Dorsey and Cleveland drafted Baker Mayfield, a reach at number 1, they created and overspent to build a fortress around him to ensure he would look okay. So when they signed this contract with OBJ, I said at the time, why? He doesn't want to be there. You're spending a fortune on Jarvis Landry. Why are you doing this? What are you doing? Last night they dropped 42 without OBJ. The offense is better without him. When they signed Austin Hooper, at the time the highest contract for a tight end, I said, I like Austin Hooper. But they had David Njoku. And they went out and drafted a tight end in the 4th round who won the award for the best tight end in the country. Why did you have to spend for Austin Hooper? So you have OBJ and Austin Hooper. Neither played last night and you scored 42 points. That ain't the problem. The problem is Cleveland's back 7 doesn't have any players. Folks, they overspend so much on the offense. There's a salary cap in this league. The Browns spend $5.5 million on a swing tackle. He doesn't start. 5.5 in Chris Hubbard. He's a swing tackle. That's more than they pay anybody in the back 7. That's why your back 7 is terrible. They paid their backup quarterback Case Keenum $6 million. That's more than anybody in the back 7 to sit and watch the games. Cleveland's self-esteem is so low at quarterback that they've built this incredible all-star fortress of receiving and tight end and offensive line and running back talent around him to ensure, see, we told you that wasn't a reach. He's really good. And that's why you're not a Super Bowl team. Your defense in the back 7's awful. There's guys back there that are not starters in the NFL. It's awful. So it'd be one thing if it was just, Baltimore's got a good defense, but their secondary, which is their strength was all banged up last night. So, and you can say, but Baker looked good. You know when Baker started looking good last night? When the Baltimore secondary got hurt. When Jimmy Smith got hurt, Marcus Peters got banged up, came back, was never the same. So, you can blame the Cleveland defense, but there was no reason to bring in OBJ. He didn't want to be there. You already had a star receiver. Wide receiver and weapons were not your issue. And though I like Austin Hooper, I liked him, but then you drafted another tight end and you had David Njoku, and you didn't really need it, but he is good, and I like him. But OBJ and Austin didn't even play last night. You dropped 42. And the reason you lost the game is because you're not spending any money on the back seven. And when you lead football games in the NFL, in the AFC, and you're going to face Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes, or maybe a Derek Carr, and you lead a game and you need a stop, you ain't going to get it in that defense. So I thought Baker was fine. But I think this organization, to overcompensate for him, you can't babysit Baker. Josh Allen has an average offensive line. He still wins. Lamar Jackson has below average wide receiving talent. He's still winning. They're trying to create this perfect offense to ensure Baker works. And in the process, they've overspent at tight end. They've overspent at wide receiver. They're not even spending any money at running back right now. They're going to eventually have to pay Nick Chubb a fortune. And he's probably going to be worth it. So, this is what I always say. There are certain, cities in America, they have low sport self-esteem. And to ensure Baker isn't a bust, they've built a fortress. But that back end is a bunch of low-earning, average talent guys. Stop babysitting Baker. Nobody's got a perfect offense outside of Patrick Mahomes. Nobody's got one. He's got to, at some point, win games with an average O-line, with okay to below average receivers, because Lamar Jackson did last night. He won a football game, and it's a bad receiving core. It really is a bad receiving core in Baltimore. All right. I've got so much stuff today. Herd hierarchy topic next hour. Great news. Could not be better news for Aaron Rodgers. And I am Mr. Optimism, Mr. Glass Half Full with Aaron Rodgers. Tremendous news for Aaron coming up.
Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific on Fox Sports Radio, FS1, and the iHeartRadio app.
Are you dealing with best life burnout, constantly striving for more, and quite frankly, over it? Maybe you just want more joy, peace, and laughter in your life now. Well, then let's go. Welcome to your new favorite podcast, Hot Happy Mess, hosted by me, your girl, Zuri Hall. Join each week as we discuss dating, relationships, self-care, career wins and losses, and so much more. Oh, and moments like this. You know what? Sometimes the grass is greener on the other side because it's fake.
Well, that's why I mentioned muting. There are some people who will check you.
Oh, we got some petty people in our lives. I was crying by the water because I was happy.
And I do love a clear.
There's no liquor. Wine will be spilled, laughs will be had, and a few tears might be shed. Messes will be made, but we're gonna find our magic in the middle of them. Don't miss new episodes every Monday. Find Hot Happy Mess on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Nearly 600 years after the invention of the printing press, the most important book in the history of the world has arrived.
That might be overstating things.
Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things. It will change your life forever.
Well, that's not necessarily true.
Most scientists agree that Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things, is proof that time travel is possible. Because that is the only way to explain how a book this impressive was possibly made.
What?
Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things, will regrow hair, whiten your teeth, and improve your love life.
That's just not at all right.
Well, the love life part, maybe, if you find someone who thinks smart is sexy.
Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things. Available now at StuffYouShouldKnow.com and everywhere you buy books.
Now that is true.
Discovery Plus streaming service brings you the great collection of real-life entertainment from your favorite brand, plus exclusive originals. Discovery Plus. Dallas. U.S. only, a new streaming service. Peter King around the corner. A herd hierarchy, which I don't know why I love it so much. I don't know. It's just a top 10 list. Nobody cares, right? Except me. And so we do it every week. And for some reason, people freak out over it. It is great to have you in. So Albert Breer wrote a column, and we got to give Albert, who comes on the show every couple of weeks, credit for this. This is something that was out there, but he wrote about it, and he talked about Mike Shanahan is one of the great all-time coaches, and I tend to be a believer in it's not just about you in life. What is your legacy? What do you leave? Andy Reid's coaching tree is amazing. Mike Holmgren. Bill Walsh's coaching tree. Mike Shanahan's is just unbelievable. And Mike Shanahan, the legend, was in D.C. a few years ago when RG3 won Rookie of the Year with Mike Shanahan. And on that staff was Matt LaFleur, now coaching Green Bay, Sean McVay, now coaching the Rams, and his son Kyle Shanahan, a very successful coach in San Francisco. And Mike runs, it's kind of the Shanahan offense. It's a zone run scheme with some West Coast principles. It's very complex. And the key to it is year 2. So, it takes quarterbacks a year to figure it out. In year 2 of this system, Jared Goff with McVay got to a Super Bowl. In year 2, Matt Ryan with Kyle Shanahan got to a Super Bowl. In year 2, Jimmy Garoppolo with Kyle got to a Super Bowl. In year 2, with Matt LaFleur, Aaron Rodgers is having by far and away the scariest season in the NFL. He's just great, at everything. And this is the offense that John Elway had, and in year 2 of it, Elway went 13-2. By year 3, Elway won the Super Bowl. By year 4, Elway had won back-to-back Super Bowls. So that's why we try to add context to this stuff, and Albert Breer, go read his column, did a great job. Some of this stuff is just hard. We don't have a preseason. We don't have camps. If you go look at Tom Brady's numbers this year, he's set to blow away all of Tampa's historic quarterback numbers, and we're all crushing him. So Goff, Matt Ryan, and Shanahan, and Garoppolo in year 2 got to Super Bowls. Aaron's better than all of them, and in some cases, a lot better. Year 2, Matt LaFleur, absolutely on fire. With the Mike Shanahan system, and what is also amazing is that the Washington football team had Sean McVay, Matt LaFleur, and Kyle Shanahan in the building at the same time. I may have wanted to retain one of those guys. Nothing against Ron Rivera, but it is an offensive league. Joy Tatum with the news.
Herd on the news. This is the Herdline News.
Well, Colin, there's a lot of conspiracy theories floating around out there in the world today.
Yeah.
And you proposed, I don't know if it's a conspiracy as much as it's a theory. About what Bill Belichick and the Patriots might do.
Week 17, they play the
Week
Jets.
17, stick it to the Jets.
If they lost to the Jets wouldn't get Trevor Lawrence, and Belichick wouldn't have to face him in division. The Jags would get him.
Well, he's remained committed to Cam Newton as the Patriots starter so far, but Jared Stidham did get some action last week against the Rams, so once again, Belichick was asked about the possibility of making a change at quarterback.
Talking about Stidham going into this game, it was a little bit different than maybe that Chargers game when it was 45-0, but he was put in that game at 10 minutes because he felt like he gave you the best chance to come back and win in this game. Is that right?
Want to give him an opportunity to play, so that's what we did. Would there ever be a situation that you would be open to playing both guys, Stidham and Cam? Kind of like the same. That's not where we are right now, so yeah, we're not there now.
Okay, so that's the key. We're not there right now. The word is now. If somebody went to you and with something, Joy, and said, and people thought, Joy may do this or that, and somebody said, Joy, are you going to do this? And you're like, well, I'm not there now. That basically, the now gives you the opportunity. You're not held to it. You're not culpable. You're not beholden to anything. Right now, I work here. I do this. I'm willing to go there. So Belichick is setting up a Week 17 start Jared Stidham.
The door is open.
Now,
That was not a conclusive statement.
thank you.
You might be onto something there. In the current draft order is the Jets still have the number 1 pick, then the Jags, and the Bengals, Chargers, Cowboys, Panthers, Falcons, Dolphins via Houston, Eagles, and Giants. That's the top 10.
Chargers have a lot of talent to be picking fourth.
they had a very, very rough season.
I know, but God, they got a lot of players, and they got the quarterback right. So I mean, they could trade down, but I seriously, with the Chargers, how many players can make the roster? I mean, outside offensive line, they may luck out and get that Penei Sewell, that left tackle. If the Chargers get him for Herbert, and he gets the best left tackle prospect in 5 years, wow.
Well, the Bengals, Chargers, and we're assuming the Cowboys don't need quarterbacks, so that's 3 of the top 5.
But I would say this: the Bengals and the Cowboys, Joey, could benefit from moving down and getting multiple players. The Chargers couldn't.
Right.
What they could benefit from is getting the best left tackle for 10 years to replace Justin Herbert. Okay, so the first 2 teams taking quarterback. The third team should take Penei Sewell. That's exactly what the Chargers need. God, this could work out.
I mean, if the Bengals trade down,
Oh, and I think
if someone's going to trade up in the draft, they're not going to trade up to get a left tackle. They're going to trade up to get a quarterback. So if someone trades with the Bengals at the 3rd spot, that makes it perfect for the Chargers. They don't have to move, and they can get him.
I could argue the Bengals don't need a left tackle. They have Jonah Williams, the kid from Alabama, who's a terrific player. I got to tell you something. When you look at the Chargers, what do they need on that roster? A left tackle to protect Herbert for a decade. Wow.
This draft's going to be something. So the Chiefs moved into the top spot in the AFC with the Steelers lost to the Bills, and with only the 1 seed getting a bye this season, Patrick Mahomes knows how crucial it is to hold on to that position.
It is important. We believe that no matter what happened, we would have a chance to find ways to win football games and make our run. But obviously, to be in the number 1 seed now, I mean, you got to make sure you hold on to it, get that bye, make sure you have everybody healthy, everybody ready to go. And then in the AFC, you're going to play a great team no matter who you play. And we're excited for it. We're excited to be able to control our own destiny.
So their remaining schedule is at the Saints, Falcons, and the Chargers. The Steelers' remaining schedule is at the Bengals, Colts, and at the Browns. But even if the Steelers win out, the Chiefs would only need to win one of their remaining NFC matchups, so they'd have to beat the Falcons or the Saints, and beat the Chargers in week 17 to clinch the number 1 seed. So they basically have to go 2-1, but they obviously have to beat the Chargers. Steelers, obviously, we're going to assume they're going to beat the Bengals, and the Colts and the Browns are not getting games. So this is looking like it's set up for the Chiefs to get the number 1 seed, which makes things so different for the Steelers this year, because not only is that bye very valuable, and there's only one of them, the Steelers' bye week was a long time ago. So they're going to have been playing game after game after game with no rest, and then have to go on a playoff run. So
also, Joy, who's the best coach in the NFL off a bye? Andy Reid. So good luck to the team that faces the best team in the football off a bye, with maybe schematically the best coach we've had in 20 years, Andy Reid.
Yeah, and it's set up for them to do that. So Mike McCarthy's first year with the Cowboys was a little disappointing. There's been some speculation that they might not stick with him and he'd be a one and done, but Stephen Jones put any rumors about that to rest. Dallas in 2021.
No, there'll be absolutely no change with Coach McCarthy. You know, if you look at his track record and his pedigree, he's consistently won year in and year out. And we have the utmost confidence that this ship is going to be righted quickly. And Mike's going to be the leader of this group, and he's certainly a great head coach.
This morning, Jerry Jones also said it was ridiculous to think that they'd be making a head coaching
Now,
change.
in fairness to Mike McCarthy, since the bye, Goulet, I know you're a hater on the Cowboys, but since the bye, they've been a limited team based on offensive line injuries. And Andy Dalton. But since the bye, they've beaten Minnesota, they've beaten Cincinnati, they gave Pittsburgh a real game. Let's be honest, let's be fair with the Cowboys. There was pre-bye, fire everybody. Post-bye, you're like, well, if you put Dak in a healthier left tackle, you win 8-9 games.
Since the bye, they've only been blown out twice.
John, you always go to the negative. They've also got a win over Minnesota, a win over Cincinnati.
Well, he isn't his first year. He lost his franchise quarterback.
Thank you.
It's a COVID year.
O-line's a mess.
The O-line's a disaster, and so is the defense. Now, you could argue that he's responsible for any side of the ball being a mess, but he can't control Dak. He can't control COVID. If you look at the coaching records with teams with first-year coaches, Kevin Stefanski's 9-4, Ron Rivera's 6-7, Joe Judge is 5-8, and Mike McCarthy and Matt Rule are 4-9. Now, when you look at the situation with Matt Rule, maybe you could argue maybe he should have more wins, but we knew they were going to struggle this year.
Okay, but McCarthy lost his.
Yeah, yes,
he lost his quarterback. Yeah, okay, so McCarthy's going to be here.
I had no thoughts at all that they were going to move on from him, even if Dak had the entire season. It's just that's really not how organizations should be running. Like you need more than 1 year to establish anything. And now listen, if they're winning 3 or 4 games with Dak, maybe you had that conversation, but I still think he needs more time. And then give it to him.
Yeah, fair. Joy with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Lie News.
You know, I was thinking about this morning when my wife sometimes, we have a lot of kids, and so we talk a lot about kids. And I always have this rule. I was just talking to a really good friend the other day about this. As I say, whenever you have issues with your kids, and there's just you can't have 5 or 6 kids and they're just all perfect. Like they're little humans. They their brains are forming. And whenever my wife kind of gets sort of concerned, I always say, would you have signed up for the current situation 10 years ago? So I'll give you an example. Let's just say, not saying this happened, but if it did, one of our kids got caught smoking pot. And my wife would be like, okay, and I would say, time out. If I'd have told you 10 years ago we got 6 kids, we live in California, the most liberal state in the country, and one of our kids may have smoked a joint. I'm just going to tell you, as a dad, I would have signed up for that. There's a lot worse stuff. So I always have that kind of rule as a parent, is I made a lot of mistakes as a kid, but I think if you'd asked my mom, would you sign up for a goofy kid who loves sports and one time almost blew the house up, but was a pretty good kid and got B pluses? My mom would have said, yeah. So the Tom Brady thing. Everybody is freaking out. So I just want to remind everybody on this Tom Brady thing. If I would have said this before the season, he is on pace to throw for 37 touchdowns, 14 picks, 4,300 yards, 96.5 passer rating, and a 65% completion percentage, and go 11-5 or 10-6. Would you have signed up for it with no preseason for a 43-year-old quarterback? Tom Brady is on he is on pace. Tampa Bay has been around since 1976. It is now 2020, 50 years of a franchise, right? He's going to set their passing touchdown record, their passer rating record, and he's probably going to go, because they play Atlanta twice and Detroit once, he's probably going to go 11-5. Let's just say 10-6, they split with Atlanta. Context. In fact, I was thinking about this morning, is that because he's Brady and we tend to overreact on Mondays or after standalone games, we all freaked out about that Chicago loss. He's screaming at teammates, they had 13 penalties. So I thought to myself, okay, let's go back. What have been the 5 craziest losses in the NFL this year? The first one was week 1 when the Jags in a tank mode beat the Colts. And we're like, the Jags haven't won since. So the Jags beat the Colts in week 1, and we were all rightly thinking, this is nonsense. This is not the NFL. The Jags have not won a game since. In week 5, the Raiders go to Arrowhead and beat Kansas City. In week 8, the Bengals beat the Titans and actually kicked their arse. In week 13, the Giants with Colt McCoy go to Seattle and beat them. And this weekend, Jalen Hurts beats the Saints. Tom's not even in one of the 5 crazy losses. Context. They went on the road to Chicago, a team that just blew out Deshaun Watson. Crushed them. And they lost by 1 to the Bears, again with a bunch of new parts, against a very good defense. We gotta slow down. Like, what Tom is doing, we would have signed up for. I think Tom would have signed up for. Tom, you're gonna throw for 37 touchdowns, 4,300 yards, and go 10-6 or 11-5. Privately, Tom Brady would have signed up for that. He would have signed up for it. Peter King now joining us, Football Morning in America. Peter King. NBCSports.com brought to you by Mercedes-Benz, the best or nothing. So I am in the Lamar Jackson camp. He wins 79% of his games. He's the best athlete in football at his position. He has shown he can come from behind. And my argument is we defend Phillip Rivers for years, who was the worst athlete in the league at the position, had sometimes spotty judgment, and had a good arm, not great, and won 56% of his games. And there are people that will argue he's a Hall of Famer. My argument is Lamar's having a down year. His passer rating is 95. I thought he did 6 or 7 things last night, Peter. Nobody in football could duplicate. Nobody. I love the kid. I think he's got passion and spirit, but there are those who still question him. This morning, how do you feel about Lamar Jackson, franchise quarterback?
In July and August, and I had this conversation with somebody with the Ravens, I said, man, I don't feel good about sort of the way that I think Lamar is going to play, which is to run 10, 12, 13 times every week. 8, 10, 12, let's say. And this guy said, this is what Lamar does. I think, basically, I don't remember exactly, but it was basically, we don't want to neuter him, okay? And so last night, I watched that game, and I said, Lamar Jackson should play like this.
Yeah.
He should take off.
Yeah.
Because he is a weapon unlike anybody. Unlike Russell Wilson, unlike Mahomes, unlike Taysom Hill. Unlike anybody. Even unlike Deshaun Watson. And the reason that he is that he can be a blip on the radar screen. He can make people miss who are right in front of him. And so I think last night showed me that, look, last year I think it was kind of fluky that he led the NFL in touchdown passes. I don't know that he'll ever do that again. But he needs to play with his legs. He's not only an exciting player, but he is a winning player with his legs.
Yeah, thank you. He's a winning player. It's funny. Not everything also, I've talked this about friends. Not everything lasts a lifetime. So, you don't marry everybody a date. Let's say lasted 7 years. 7 years of Lamar, he got hurt. Like, I would take winning 79% of his games. I'll take that for 7 years over 14 years of average.
Not only that, Colin, but think about this. Think about it this way, okay? If you told Lamar, stay in the pocket, we only want you running 3 times a game and only when forced, okay? Do that, and you're going to last 13 to 15 years, or who knows, maybe even longer. Or you could be, relatively speaking, a meteor across the NFL sky and be at the peak of your game for 10 years. What would you take?
Easy.
I'll definitely take the 10. I'll worry about 2030 in 2030.
Or 2029 for the draft. I believe, I think Buffalo, the history of the Steelers in Buffalo is not that different, except one won all the Super Bowls they were in, and the other one had lost it, but they're both proud franchises that have had a lot of great players. And I said the other day, watching the Steelers-Bills, it was like watching the Steelers 13 years ago. Ben was in year 4, he was taking off, the coach was from William & Mary, defensive coach. And he may not be the best young quarterback. There was this kid named Manning and Tom Brady. But I got to tell you, when I look at Josh Allen and Sean McDermott, I honestly think this morning that is a top 3. I don't think I'm hyperbolic. I think it's a top 3 franchise for the next decade in the NFL. That's how strongly I feel about Buffalo this morning. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't know. Top 3, we'll see. I think they got to do something first, Colin. And again, I think right now that Josh Allen has got a good chance to be a Jim Kelly type force in the NFL. But again, look, I'm a little hesitant of handing Buffalo this title, that title, and every other title because they haven't won anything yet. They haven't won anything basically in 25 years. And again, I'm not holding that against them. I just want to see it. I want to see what happens in a huge game in January. That's when legends are made. That's when great franchises are made.
Jalen Hurts. Let's say he goes. I think they're going to lose to Arizona, but let's just say he won. He beat the Saints. He's got 3 games left. He goes 2-1, so he ends up being 3-1. But he completes 61% of his throws. It's more run than throw. Do you have a solution or a problem in Philadelphia? What do you make of what happened this weekend?
I think that I want to, at the end of this season, let's assume that the Eagles don't make the playoffs, okay? And at the end of this season, what I want to do, if I'm Doug Peterson, if I'm Howie Roseman, if I'm Jeffrey Lurie, I want all the emotions to die down for 6 weeks, okay? everybody to go away. I want everybody to think. And then February 15th, a week after the Super Bowl, let's have either a meeting or a Zoom meeting, and if we can, let's have a meeting and discuss where everything is and what everybody wants. Okay? And by that, I mean, if in that meeting, Carson Wentz says, I want out. I absolutely want out. Make the best deal you can for me. I'm not going to be a good guy if you don't trade me. Okay? Well, and I don't think he would do that, but who knows? I don't know what'll happen. And, if I'm the Eagles at that time, I have to determine whether I want to take a pretty major cap hit in 2021 and go with the kid who's making nothing on the cap and go with the kid and basically try to do the best deal I can for Carson Wentz. And that's probably the way I do it. To me, Colin, I think the team that would be most interesting and the most interested is Indianapolis. It makes all the sense in the world. Reunited with Frank Reich. It's in central Indiana. Everything is nice, calm, and cool, and there's not a WIP there.
Sports radio is just obnoxious. Okay, finally, I think I would vote Aaron Rodgers MVP. You could make the argument for Mahomes. I think we kind of know where that's at. Let's do Coach of the Year. I do not remember a year where there's more legitimate candidates for Coach of the Year. I love what Sean McDermott's doing. I think what they have done to Josh Allen is amazing. I think I'd probably go McDermott. Do you have a Coach of the Year this morning?
Yeah. I love that pick because I think the one thing I always say about these awards is that they're 16-game awards. We have 13/16ths of the evidence right now for this award. So all you can do is say, if the season ended today, who would I vote for? 2 weeks ago, I would have said number 1, Mike Tomlin, number 2, Stefanski, number 3, Brian Flores. Today, there's a good chance I would say Sean McDermott, although I want to see if Mike Tomlin gets him out of the muck and the mire.
Yeah.
And if the Steelers can come back, I don't mean like this week in Cincinnati, okay? But I mean, finishing off the season in style, winning week 17 at Cleveland. If they can come back and play well down the stretch, there's a good chance I'd still go with Tomlin.
Good stuff. Peter King, NBCSports.com. Pro Football Hall of Fame on that committee since 92, a member of the Board of Selectors. As always, Peter, great seeing you.
Thank you, Colin.
I do think he makes a good point. Indianapolis is just less yelling, more calming. Nothing against Philadelphia. Why we love Philadelphia is the passion, but maybe it's engulfing a young quarterback, Carson Wentz. It's just engulfing him. All right, coming up next, why something about last night really, and maybe Baltimore and Cleveland fans will hate hearing this, and it's a compliment, but it doesn't sound like it. That's coming up.
Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific.
My name is Lowell Berlanti, and I created the podcast Prodigy to find the answer to a very complicated question. Can genius be created? I asked academics, researchers, scientists, and the prodigies themselves to gain a better understanding of intelligence, skill acquisition, and expert performance. So disregard all simple explanations, because complex questions require complex answers. Listen to Prodigy every Thursday on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Ever wonder what would happen if the 7 dwarfs from Snow White met up with the 13 dwarfs from The Hobbit?
Ever gotten into a deep discussion about who is the ultimate mouse? Mickey, Mighty, or Danger?
Ever dressed up like Doctor Who at a water park?
Then join Ariel Caston
and Jonathan Strickland on the Large Nerdron Collider podcast,
where we discuss all things good and geeky, from news to hot button items to personal geek failings, and then mash it all together in a hilarious melange of nerdiness.
He's Jonathan. I'm Ariel. You'll find us on Large Nerdron Collider.
The Large Nerdron Collider podcast launches on December 16th, 2020.
Listen on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
sometimes you just do something that's fun. So I am going to just spend a minute on here, a story time with your favorite uncle, Uncle Colin. So, John, if you could, let's have a story time with Uncle Colin. Some story. So, years ago, my kids were small, and I used to work at another big sports company. I don't know what happened to them. I've heard it's not all good news. Anyway, there was an amusement park right next to the company I used to work for. It was called Lake Compounds. It was predictably awful food. They bragged they had the world's oldest roller coaster. It was wooden and it hurt to ride. I'm gangly and tall. It was painful. At least once an afternoon it would get stuck at the top. And you'd be up there like, oh, this is not great. But my son loved it. So we would go like 3 times in the summer and eat crappy food, and they had this pirate ship that had water flying everywhere. It was so unhealthy. But yet, I knew it wasn't Disneyland. But I felt like a good dad every time I went. Like I'd drive home, I'd look at my son, he was sunburned, he was soaked. His teeth were rotting to the cotton candy, but I felt like that was a good dad moment. I always slept well that night. All right, the story time's over. It didn't really go anywhere, but the point being is sometimes fun is good enough. Just last night was fun. These are not Super Bowl teams. They're not. Cleveland has spent way too much money on offense. Their back seven is atrocious. In a conference with Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes, you could outplay the Chiefs and the Bills and lead by 14, and you couldn't hold the lead with that defense. And Baltimore today is not a playoff team. Both may make it. But I'm watching that last night and I'm like, this is kind of a mess. Quarterback leaves. He's got cramps. And I mean, let's be honest, Cleveland's offense started, looking good when Baltimore was having these secondary issues, which their team's really built around. But don't compare this. Remember a couple years ago, we had the Rams play the Chiefs on Monday Night Football. But those teams were both 9-1. And those teams, we were talking about a Super Bowl preview with Mahomes and Goff and McVay and Andy Reid, 9-1. It was a wild, and that game was better than this game because it just was. This was two good teams. One may not make the playoffs. Neither has a shot at a Super Bowl. I think Baltimore has a better shot because Lamar just does stuff nobody else can do, and Lamar could, would it be the craziest thing in the world if Lamar Jackson goes to the playoffs, they get in week 17, out of a bye, if they play Kansas City, and Kansas City's a dog, a little tight, and Lamar goes nuts. And all of a sudden, 1 or 2 fumbles by Kansas City, and Lamar short field, and you lead, and all of a sudden he didn't have to play from behind. But like last night to me, I was sitting there watching, I'm like, this is just top 5 circus on Monday Night Football ever. It was a circus. It was. I mean, it had everything. It had all the elements, the comeback, Baker and Lamar, and you're seeing stuff you'd never see, and the cramps, and he runs out on the field and he saves the day. But like Uncle Colin's story about Lake Compounds, the wooden roller coaster wasn't that safe, and it hurt to ride. Somebody could have really been injured seriously. They weren't, and we all take a deep breath on that. But it was more about feeling like a good dad than it was feeling great riding a wooden coaster that, did I say this? Hurt to ride. Rectech Grills, rectechwithaq.com, built by grillers for grillers. Stainless steel built. Herd Hierarchy next.
My name is Jamie Loftus, and I'm here to tell you about my new show, Lolita Podcast. Lolita by Vladimir Nabokov is one of the most controversial works of all time, and our culture has done its protagonist a huge disservice over the years. I've spent the last few months getting to the bottom of how America turned this abused young girl into a sex symbol, and what that says about us. New episodes drop weekly on Mondays. Listen to Lolita Podcast on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
You're going to come into a new season of joy and fulfillment like you've never seen. Hi, I'm Joel Osteen. I have a daily podcast where I talk about overcoming obstacles, accomplishing dreams, and becoming all you were created to be. You may have had some disappointments in the past, but this is a new day. Keep feeding your hopes, feeding your dreams. Use your energy to feed your destiny. Listen to the Joel Osteen Daily Podcast on the iHeartRadio app or wherever
Podcast. Do you love all things geeky? Well, so do we. Join us, Jonathan Strickland and Ariel Caston, on the Large Nerdron Collider podcast as we take on the geeky news of today and turn it into so bad it's good, quick bites of fanfic. The Large Nerdron Collider podcast launches on December 16th, 2020. Listen on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Thanks for listening to the Herd Podcast. Be sure to catch us live every weekday from 12 to 3 Eastern, 9 to noon Pacific on Fox Sports Radio and FS1. On your local station for the Herd at foxsportsradio.com or stream us live every day on the iHeartRadio app by searching Herd.
You're listening to Fox Sports Radio.
Oh, here we go. It is hour 2. It is great to have you. We're in Los Angeles. It's the Herd, wherever you may be and however you may be listening. Fox Sports Radio, iHeartRadio, FS1. Doesn't Joy Taylor look remarkable today? You have got something going on.
Thank you.
Doesn't Joy have sort of a... It is kind of remarkable. You're like having... 3 co-hosts. There's the Marlena Dietrich, 50s Hollywood. Then you went during COVID. You just let it go, girl.
Yeah.
And this is something in between. You're a vice president of a major company, but also party a little too hard for the weekends in your job position. So you're a little cray, but responsible, and you could give her money and she'll have it. Oh, I haven't given you the money I owe you.
You haven't.
I owe you $100.
It's okay. I know you're good for it.
Yeah. Just rolling in cabbage over here. All right, so James Harrison this hour. So let's just I like doing this. You know, I know everybody does like a top 10 list. I get it.
I have a feeling like you're really going to upset some people today.
I think, like always, I'm America's honesty broker, so here we go, my herd hierarchy.
Herd hierarchy.
Let's go!
The top 10 NFL teams according to Colin. Number 10.
I don't give a rip about your record. What are you today? The Steelers are the 10th best team in the NFL. Fewer than 20 points in 3 straight games. Held under 50 rushing yards. It's like high school in 5 of 7 games. Okay, this is a team that the only reason you make the list you lead the NFL in takeaways, your defense can overwhelm a bad offensive line, and you have the most sacks. TJ Watt is unblockable. So you're a top 10 team, and you can create points with your defense. If you can't run the ball at all, in December and January, you're not a Super Bowl team. You can be a good team, I can love your coach, but this is where you are, you're 10.
Number 9.
Tampa Bay. Could somebody tell me what their identity is? They had a bye week. I still can't figure it out. They're just a collection of good players. By the way, they got a Mike Tyson quality. They're great against bad fighters. They're 6-1 against teams that are 500 or worse. But I can't get past this. They're 2-4 against teams with winning records. So they're not a Super Bowl team either. Now, they have the number 1 rush defense and the number 6 scoring offense, but to me they're just a collection of really good players, and they're going to get to the playoffs, and I think they'll probably win a playoff game, but like Pittsburgh, this morning, what is their offensive identity? They don't have one.
Number 8.
The Cleveland Browns. You know what? Their back-end defense is too big of a liability to win a Super Bowl, and their point differential of -20 this year. The only team in the league with 9 or more wins with a negative point differential. But they run the football. I think you could argue they have the best offensive line in the game. Baker's interception last night was not a terrible interception. It was a great play by Baltimore. I think they're going to be fun for the next several years. If you have the best offensive line and best rushing game in the NFL, you're a playoff team. They are absolutely a playoff team. But that defense on the back end spent a little less money on wide receivers and tight ends.
Number 7.
The Seahawks. Very interesting. Their next 3 games at Washington, tough, Rams, and at the 49ers. They could go 1-2 or 0-3. These are not all good matchups for them because they all have great defensive fronts. But they're allowing 12 points a game over the last 3 games, best in the NFL. Their defense has 24 sacks since week 9. And think about that. No other team has 19. So they have solved their big problem. They're taking the ball away, and they have a pass rush. If this team has more variables than anybody in the top 10, I think they could be as good as the second best team in the league and be the 10th or 11th best team in the league. If they're healthy at running back. You don't want to face them in the playoffs. Seattle at 7.
Number 6.
But today, I think Baltimore, even with all their injuries, would beat them head-to-head. Great rushing offense. Lamar leads all quarterbacks with 793 rushing yards. Baltimore's all beat up last night in the secondary. Otherwise, if Lamar doesn't get cramps and they don't have secondary issues, this could have been kind of an ugly game. I think this team needs to get healthy. But this idea that we're still banging on Lamar, who's got a 95 quarterback rating, has won 75% of his games, and can do things in football games that no other human being on the planet could do, you can sell your stock. I wouldn't want to face the Ravens in the playoffs. I have them at 6.
Number 5.
I think I have the Rams low, but I worry about Goff's inconsistency. First of all, this team is 34-0 when they lead at half under Sean McVay, and they usually lead at half. He's a very creative guy. He comes out. They're hard to stop in the opening drive. They're the only team in the NFL that has outgained opponents by 1,000+ yards. Not even the Chiefs have done that. They've allowed the fewest big plays in the NFL. You've got to march down the field on them. That's secondary is the best, and it's young. They got the best corner in the NFL that matches up with all the star receivers. I do worry about Goff's propensity to turn it over. He gets into these tunnels of turnovers, and he can get them out of sorts very quickly.
Number 4.
Saints. I think they beat the Rams. I'm not sure. I think their defense, because it didn't have a lot of stars, doesn't get talked about. They don't have an Aaron Donald. Boy, their defense is good. And listen, they're 8-0 without Breeze. Here's the thing, though. They need Breeze. The last 2 weeks, people have caught up to Taysom Hill, okay? In the last 2 weeks, 21 points. With Breeze, 24 more. And we knock on Breeze for not throwing the deep ball. So I do think with Taysom Hill, they're more athletic, but the league, there are limitations on what they can do. But the reason I put them here, 4, is because they're getting Breeze back, and I think this defense and coaching and situational football, they're as good at that stuff as anybody in the league.
Number 3.
The Packers. Listen, they're 10-1 against everybody else in the league, and 0-2 against teams with winning records. That's got to freak you out if you're in Green Bay. Yes, Aaron's going to get my MVP. Yes, Devontae Adams is great. What I worry about, though, is I watched them in that second half against the Colts, and Aaron just sits and watches the football game because their run defense worries me. It was much better against Detroit this week, but I have them at number 3.
Number 2.
Kansas City. 5 straight wins by 1 possession. Red zone offense is now a problem. The Dolphins outscored them with 3 rookie offensive linemen, Devontae Parker out, and 4th-string running back outscored him 17-3 in the 4th quarter. By the way, they're at the Saints this week. And I can't figure out why they're favored by 4. They are not playing great football today. Kansas City at 2.
Number 1.
This morning, Buffalo is absolutely the best team in the NFL. They're a Hail Mary away from winning their last 7. The only team in the NFL, the only one, with 20 or more first downs every game. They've allowed fewer than 25 points in 3 straight games. Their defense leads the NFL by a mile in 4th quarter takeaways. So they're playing great situational football. Since week 9, they score more than the Chiefs. They have more touchdown to interception ratio is better. Their point differential is better. Their turnover differential is better. And they've got fewer penalties in the last 3 weeks. This morning, Buffalo is the best football team in the NFL. I think this morning the Rams could beat the Saints, maybe. So I may have done the Rams low, but I didn't want to overreact to losing to Jalen Hurts. You'd never seen him. You were guessing defensively. You had a backup quarterback, and I'm like, come on. The Saints had no idea what Philadelphia was going to run. I'm going to give you a pass on that. All right. Now, I know. Andy Reid's probably throwing pencils and stuff. So the Buffalo-Kansas City thing is everybody will overreact. So let's just do a superficial dive to start. Last 3 weeks. That's current. Let's stay current on this. This herd hierarchy is about this week. Now, last 3 weeks, Buffalo has won by 10, 10, and 11. Kansas City's won by 3, 6, and 6. But that's superficial. Who are they playing? Let's dig deeper. Defense last 3 weeks. Buffalo is allowing 330 yards a game. Kansas City over 370. Buffalo's better there. Let's go to the details. Penalties. Last 3 weeks. Buffalo 20, Kansas City 23. We'll call that even. Last 3 weeks, this league is about red zone scoring opportunities. That's what the playoffs are, folks. It ain't about the 20s. It's about, do you settle for field goals or do you get touchdowns when you get your opportunities? Because Mahomes and Josh Allen are going to get you in the red zone. Last 3 weeks, Kansas City 1 red zone touchdown, Buffalo 6. That's why they're number 1. You're going to get to the playoffs. Mahomes going to get you down the field. You're not going to get all these free Tyreek Hill over the top touchdowns in the playoffs. You're playing the best defenses, the best coordinators, the best coaches. You're going to get down and get a first and goal at the 9. Kansas City settling for field goals over the last 3 games. Buffalo scoring touchdowns. Today they're a better team than Kansas City. There you go. Feel good about it. Feel confident. Not kidding. Flexing. Feel very good. James Harrison's around the corner. I think Steeler Nation's come to their senses and realize I'm an empathetic man and an honest one, and Pittsburgh's just not a great football team right now. James Harrison, the 2-time Super Bowl champ from Pittsburgh, will join us next.
Want more Herd? The Herd streams 24 hours a day, 7 days a week within the iHeartRadio app. Search Herd to listen live or on demand whenever you like.
Contact World is a technology and media company dedicated to improving public health because we're fed up with the way our country has ignored public health for so long. Those days are over. And our podcast is our opportunity to dive into hot topics that are relevant to your life, from contact tracing to vaccines to social and racial justice. We may not have all the answers, but you deserve to know what goes on in your neighborhood and the decisions that affect you and your family's health. I'm Justin Beck. Join me and my co-hosts Catherine and Deepti as we seek truth in health. Contact World's podcast is the voice of the people and your opportunity to improve public health and health equity. So subscribe to Contact World and tell your friends, because we all deserve the right information, not misinformation. Visit contact.world to learn more. Listen to Contact World, the podcast, on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
My name is Jamie Loftus, host of shows like My Year in Mensa and The Bechtelcast. I'm here to tell you about my new show, Lolita Podcast. Lolita by Vladimir Nabokov is one of the most controversial works in American history. The story and its main character have been adapted, misinterpreted, and twisted over the years by Hollywood, by fashion, by fans of the book, and by the author himself. Lolita has gone from the tragic story of an abused 13-year-old girl to a cultural narrative that frames her as the seductress and to blame. So how did this all happen? It's a messy story. This is a story about a girl named Dolores, and I think she's gotten lost over the years. I'll be speaking with literary scholars, with experts on abuse, and with the actors who have played the part of Lolita and more. So let's get to the bottom of it, for her. New episodes drop weekly on Mondays. Listen to Lolita Podcast on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Saturday, with a spot in the college football playoff potentially up for grabs, the Big Ten's best battle for the conference crown. Number 14 Northwestern takes on Justin Fields and number 4 Ohio State in the 2020 Big Ten Championship presented by Discover. It all starts with Big Noon Kickoff pregame show live on site from Indianapolis, followed by the Big Ten Championship at noon Eastern, only on Fox.
Well, I mean, you have the number 1 academic institution in the conference, Northwestern, with a great football coach against the number 1 football power, so I'm going to take Ohio State. You know, speaking of that, our next guest went to Kent State, was undrafted, and he's the only undrafted player to ever be named NFL Defensive Player of the Year. I think one of the reasons I love the NFL is that the football culture in America, it builds you into being resilient. You don't get drafted, you got to go a long route, and nobody's done that route in the history of the league, I would argue, better than James Harrison. 15 years, 5 Pro Bowls, all-time sack leader for the Steelers, which is saying something. He joins us now. So I've said this, is that I don't get too caught up, James, on records. I mean, obviously you have to get into the playoffs, but I've watched Pittsburgh over the last 4 weeks, and I'm like, I'm sorry, they can't run the football. It's December, and they just don't do it for me. Like, when you watch the Steelers and their record, do you see a team that can win multiple playoff games today?
I feel like the Steelers can win multiple playoff games. Not the way they're playing now, no. I think they need to get back to being able to actually run the ball. You know, go ahead and grind some things out. Don't put everything on on Ben's arm. I think the offensive line, they're going to have to do a little better job of creating holes.
running backs are going to have to get healthy. Connor, he was out in and out, COVID, so on and so forth. But the biggest thing, the receivers need to catch the ball. I believe they're number one in drops. So if the guys aren't catching the ball when you're doing things where you're trying to get, run alternative plays where you're thinking and dunking, because you're not doing a great job running the ball and they're dropping those passes, that's going to create the things that you see. You only got 16 points a game over the course of the last two losses. I think it's 275 yards, both of those 27-28, and along with, I think, it's like below 30% on third downs.
Yeah, they're bad third down team right now. So I'm a defender of Lamar Jackson, and my theory is if you're unbelievable at one thing, you don't have to be great at everything else. He is so spectacular as an athlete, I'm going to live with the fact he struggles throwing the ball outside of the hash marks up the field. He's not great at it, but he's so good at everything else. A lot of people are like, it's not going to last forever. It's a little shticky. I think you can build your franchise around Lamar. I saw it last night. Where do you land with him going forward?
I'm sort of middle, because right now he can do all those things. He can create plays with his legs, and that's the biggest thing about him, is that he can throw the ball. He's not extremely great at doing it, but he can do it effectively. And the fact that he runs the ball effectively, that means that you have to either sit back and have a bunch of guys in coverage that's fine, or you got to try and rush him and hope you don't lose contain or he breaks contain. The thing that they did, last year that they didn't continue to do into the playoffs is they didn't continue the run pass that they were doing with him. They were trying to make him a straight, pocket passing quarterback, and that's not what he is.
Right.
I think it's effective to do it now because he's young. You can get 4, 5, 6 years out of it easily. But I mean, if he wants to be in there 10, 12 years, I think at some point he's got to be able to effectively pass the ball all across the field.
So, it's interesting. James, you played on a couple of not just good but great teams. And I've said this about Kansas City. They are so talented and can score so brilliantly and quickly that they don't always play with a ton of urgency. There's kind of a feel like the Warriors with Durant and Steph. Sometimes they're just kind of sitting around waiting to flip a switch. Go back to the best teams you were on, one or two of them. Did you get into points during the season where you guys watch film? You know who you're playing. You know your favorite. You know you got better players. Is it hard sometimes to get motivated when you're on a super team?
For me, it wasn't hard to be motivated because you wanted to keep that top spot. You always knew that the team that you were playing against were trying to be the team to knock you off, to be the ones that said they may not win a game all season, but if they go in there and they beat the Steelers, just like right now, if they go in there and they beat Kansas City, that's going to be a notch under their belt. They're defending champions, especially, after you've won a Super Bowl. So for me personally and the teams that I played on, if we lost to someone that we shouldn't, which, that seemed to happen, a lot, where we would lose to a team that, we shouldn't lose to. And, they would say we beat a team that we shouldn't beat. But for me personally, I didn't have that issue. It may have been, other guys that, looked past them and, like, hey, he's looking at next week already, not really, paying attention to, all the things that the details, that we need to pay attention to, and looking at, who we're trying to play next week, because that may be a bigger and more difficult opponent.
So the two of the teams that I think of you is Steelers and Patriots. And these are really well-run organizations. And in fact, New England always talks about it's not about collecting players, it's about building teams. Tampa is not a winning organization. And I watched them this year, James. And they look like a collection of players. They come off a bye. I still can't figure out their identity on offense. I can't figure it out. Like when you watch Tampa, do you see a team? Do you see a personality or an identity, or is it just a bunch of dudes who can ball?
I have to kind of agree with you there. It's a collection of guys that play good ball, that are great players or good players, and it looks like, they're not keyed in and locked into exactly, what it is, play in, play out, week in, week out, and, that's what you get. What you're looking at is, something that doesn't lack of coordinated effort. It looks like no identity. Guys, may do something here and there for a week, and the next week you look and you're like, what happened, the previous week?
Yeah. Finally, we are now late in the season. You were known as kind of a workout guy, always in unbelievable shape. And I'm sitting watching these teams now, and I'm thinking so much of the sport is mental from like week 13 on. Everybody's hurt, everybody's banged up, nobody's got all their dudes. Go back to your career. Was this your favorite time of the year? Did the game change for you late December and January?
For me, I think the fact that I continued to work out, all year round. A lot of guys, they get, later into the year and they stop hitting the gym, 2 or 3 times a week, where they were normally hitting it maybe 4 or 5 times a week. They're going 2 or 3 times a week. You get later into it, and then you start getting a little nagging injuries. So instead of, converting their workout so that they can still work out, they say, you know what, I'm not even going to work out. So for me, it wasn't that I got stronger later or better later into the season. It's just that I kept up what I started with at the beginning of the season and carried it all the way through to the end.
Longest interception return for a touchdown in Super Bowl history, 100 yards against the Cardinals. James Harrison, 15 years in the league. Good seeing you, bud.
Thank you. Good seeing you, too.
Yeah, I've talked to so many players over the years on this. The game really changes. It really becomes a mental game of attrition. I mean, last night, Baltimore's prime example. Baltimore's secondary is fantastic. The Rams and the Ravens had the best secondaries in the league. The difference is the Rams is healthy, and the Ravens last night, it started falling apart. And when it did, that's when Jimmy Smith gets hurt, and Marcus Peters banged up, comes back not the same. That's the key to their defense, and so much of this sport is situational. Are you healthy? Where you at mentally? Is the strength of your team strong? That's why last night was just a classic late season game. As Baltimore's falling apart physically, Cleveland's racing back, Lamar's got cramping, comes back in, saves the day. It was like, that's what the NFL is in December. New streaming service called Discovery app next year. New streaming service. Discovery Plus, old favorites like the Food Network and exclusive originals too. Here's Joy Taylor with the news.
Herd on the news. This is the Herdline News.
Well, the Steelers are trending in the wrong direction with the playoffs just a few weeks away, and after their second straight loss, Roethlisberger is taking a lot of blame for Pittsburgh's recent skid.
Right now, I'm not playing good enough football for us to win. If I don't play good enough football, then I need to hang it up. But I'm going to do everything I can to get us back on track.
Why is he always talking about retiring?
Because I think that creates, Ben's a little needy, and so when he talks about retiring, it sets up this, oh, you're leaving us. Don't leave us. Ben, don't leave us. So Brady doesn't have that issue. He never even, he is upset if you talk retiring.
Right.
Ben likes, you're a Pittsburgh girl. Hasn't this been a knock on Ben from day one? He's a little dramatic.
Well, yeah, but like the Pittsburgh, we can deal with the dramatics. Because, we can deal with personalities.
Right.
That's just how it is. But to me, like, just because you're not playing well, don't start talking about retiring. Like, it's exhausting. And you were just injured. So I don't want to hear about this. And he's not playing well. I understand taking the blame for things.
A lot of it's just drops.
It's insane. Catch the ball.
I know, and they're easy throws. They're not difficult sideline routes.
Yes, it's not like this is Ben Roethlisberger throwing to you. Catch the ball. Yeah. I have no idea what the issue is.
Yeah.
I mean, as Mike Tomlin say, I expect people to make routine plays routinely.
Yeah.
Like, these are not, they're not asking a lot from you here. Like, this is what is supposed to happen. I don't put this on Ben at all. I just don't like hearing about retirement. Like, he's playing well this year, which I do not know what to expect from Ben Roethlisberger coming off of that injury at this point in his career, but I don't like hearing about I need to hang it up.
Yeah.
Like, so I'm not going through that roller coaster.
Yeah.
So Sam Darnold and the Jets have 3 more chances to get a win and avoid an 0-16 season.
There haven't been that many. I mean, I don't have it in front of me, but how many have there been?
I want to say there's been 3.
There was a Lions team that went 0-16.
There was the Lions and the Browns.
Did the Buccaneers back in the day, they had a really good defense with Leroy Selman. Did they, the Seahawks would score points. They never went 0-16. There was a really bad team one
Dolphins almost did it. Almost.
Yeah.
But they didn't. But despite all the struggles this year, he doesn't want to start over with another team. He said, I love it here. I love the people. I love living here. I've always said I wanted to be a Jet for life, but that decision isn't necessarily up to me. That's how I feel. I'm always going to believe in myself. I have the utmost confidence in myself to go out there and play good football on Sundays.
Yeah, not really his call, and he has regressed badly.
And that's just not going to happen.
I love Sam Darnold, but something is so weird to me. So Sam, at the end of last year, had a winning record, played well, came into this year, and he has gotten so bad. And I'm not saying tanking, but I'm saying, like, the offense, he's got more weapons. Why is he regressing? Now, he did get hurt. Some of it's that. I find the whole Jets thing, why didn't they fire Gase?
Oh, well, I think they didn't fire Gase because Gase is terrible, and they need to ensure that they do not win a game this season. At this point in the season, the organization needs to ensure.
So ask yourself this. Gase can't win a game. He's an offensive guy, and Darnold is massively regressed, and they still haven't fired him. Like, something's not right. Sam Darnold is better than this. He may not
He is, but also it's when you and listen, they don't have a lot of talent.
No.
Let's not mince words here. I stand by that players don't intentionally tank. Like, every player on this team is putting out resume tape for their next job and for the organization that they're in now, because there is going to be a new head coach there this year. We're all assuming that there's going to be a new head coach and a whole new entire system, and they need to prove that they belong with that team as well. So players don't have any. It doesn't serve any player on that team to go 0-16. It doesn't. Like, first of all, that's going to be on your, legacy or your resume. But they have no desire to do that. They don't care about what this organization is planning on doing for the future. They may not even be there. So that's not the case. But I do think that they kept Gase on because he's not helping the team. And Sam Darnold is what Sam Darnold is at this point. Like, if you want to invest in Sam Darnold and make a trade for him, you're going to do that regardless of what you've seen with Gase, because everyone knows what the situation is in New York. And there are some teams that could use him. You have the Colts, Washington, Steelers,
Pittsburgh needs a backup.
49ers, the Saints. We don't know what's going on with Taysom Hill or if Jameis Winston's going to be there next year. The Bears. The Lions, and
by the way,
those are all teams that are not atop the draft.
Even as a backup, if you're the Chargers, and you tell Sam Darnold, you want to live at home, come back up Justin Herbert. You probably won't start, but if he gets hurt, at this point, I'm not sure what you could get for Sam. I'm not sure you could get a third-round pick for him. I don't think you couldn't get a first or a second. I don't know if you get a third, maybe a fourth. I'm dead. That's how bad he's regressed.
I do think you're going to get a draft pick for him, though. Like, that's going to happen. So, some big NBA news that just happens. Giannis has decided to stay in Milwaukee.
Wow! Here we go.
Just posted to social media that he will sign the Supermax extension with the Bucks. It'll keep him with the team for the next 5 years and is worth $228 million.
Okay.
He said, posted this on Instagram, "This is my home. This is my city. I'm blessed to be able to be a part of the Milwaukee Bucks for the next 5 years. Let's make these years count. The show goes on.
Yeah.
Let's get it."
Well, it's better for the league, frankly. Even though it's good for talent to be somewhat evenly dispersed, although villains and star teams are good. But it's just not good for the NBA if Milwaukee and Memphis can't ever keep stars, or Sacramento. It's bad for the league. The bottom is then, at least the bottom of the NFL was Cleveland 2 years ago, and now they're a playoff team. You got to give fans hope. In the NFL, you always, like the Jags this morning, feel like, if we get Justin Fields. Like, there's always hope in pro football. NBA, sometimes you do feel hopeless as a bottom 8 team.
It can also be, very top heavy and very coastal.
Yes.
The NBA. I think it's great for the Bucks. I think it's great for Milwaukee. I don't think it's great for Giannis. I don't believe that they'll win a championship.
I agree.
I think Drew Holiday was an excellent addition for them, but as far as the Bucks go, I'll believe it when I see it. That's where I am with the Bucks. In the same space as I am with the Bucks, I am with the Celtics. I've been hearing this yap. Best team in the league, MVPs, system, meh. Where's the wins? Where's the rings? I don't see them.
Thank
you.
So
whenever you guys arrive there, which you have not arrived,
yes,
then I will give you the credit. Until then, I've given enough energy to both of those organizations in the East, and there's nothing has come of it the past couple years.
That's right.
The Bucks should have been in the NBA Finals this year.
Win game. Win big playoff games.
Get to the finals. You can lose the finals. You're allowed to lose the finals to LeBron James. You're allowed to lose the finals to the Warriors. You have to get to the NBA finals. I don't want to hear about it with either of these teams. Congratulations, Giannis. That's incredible. And he's an unbelievable player and super fun to watch. But we'll see it on the championship side.
Joy with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Lie News.
Listen, people say, the NBA is too coastal. It is. For the record, so is technology. If you look at the technology hubs in America, Seattle, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Boston's huge, DC, New York, a lot of the hubs in technology are very coastal. There's not as much in Indianapolis or Kansas City. There's nothing against them. There are things that get very coastal. You have better seafood on the coasts. You generally have better, less harsh winter weather on the coast.
The coasts are also more easily accessible to people from other countries.
Yes.
Which is a big part of our economy, trade, and
port cities and
progression and business.
Yes. But I do think the one thing the NFL has really got going for it, Mahomes is from Kansas City. That's really good.
Yep.
Pittsburgh, I mean, if you start looking at the NFL right now, this is why I love their next 10 years. Buffalo is going to be great. Kansas City is going to be great. Green Bay with Aaron Rodgers is going to be great. That matters. There is a sense in the NFL of hope, and we can all play. And I think that's an incredibly important thing, because I think hope, it doesn't matter if you're a poor team, a poor person, you have to sense there is a chance to get out. And I think by Giannis staying, it's like, okay, we can compete. We can compete. And there's value in that. And by the way, I get tired of, you're an elitist, you're coastal, whatevs. But I do think they're in professional sports, Indianapolis, Green Bay, Buffalo, Kansas City, Indianapolis, they have to feel like they've got a shot. That's why Peyton Manning and Brett Favre were so huge for the NFL.
And every team is not a championship organization.
That's right.
It's perfectly fine to just be competitive every year. I just don't like hearing about how they're going to win the championship. Like, when you do that, then we start having those conversations.
There you go. Jordan Palmer, former NFL quarterback coach, he discovered very early Josh Allen, and oh my lord, is that kid great. Jordan Palmer, brother of Carson, always great to have on the show, joining us next.
Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific on Fox Sports Radio, FS1, and the iHeartRadio app.
Are you a music fan?
Do you need more music talk in your life?
Then you should be listening to Record Store Society, a music talk show podcast on the iHeartRadio network.
Record Store Society is a virtual trip to your local record store, hosted by me, Tara Davies.
And me, Seth Nicholas Johnson.
Every Friday, you'll find Seth and I behind the counter at your favorite record store. We're dispensing recommendations, making lists, and talking to our customers about anything and everything music related.
And you never know who's going to stop by. Our record store is frequented by musicians, producers, writers, actors, and especially lots of unfamous nobodies like you and I, Tara.
That's right.
As long as they are excited to talk about music, they'll probably make an appearance in our record store sooner or later, and we can't wait to talk to them.
I want to find out what their top 5 debut albums are.
I want to find out who their top 5 Beatles are.
Wait.
Exactly. So listen to Record Store Society on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Nearly 600 years after the invention of the printing press, the most important book in the history of the world has arrived.
That might be overstating things.
Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things. It will change your life forever.
Well, that's not necessarily true.
Most scientists agree that Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things, is proof that time travel is possible. Because that is the only way to explain how a book this impressive was possibly made.
What?
Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things, will regrow hair, whiten your teeth, and improve your love life.
That's just not at all right.
Well, the love life part, maybe, if you find someone who thinks smart is sexy.
Stuff You Should Know, an incomplete compendium of mostly interesting things. Available now at StuffYouShouldKnow.com and everywhere you buy books.
Now that is true.
He's worked with Joe Burrow and Josh Allen and Sam Darnold. He's a quarterback coach. It's called the Quarterback Summit, a program that helps quarterbacks reach their potential. Jordan Palmer, every time we bring you on. I get so much feedback from people around the NFL. They love these segments. Let's start with Lamar. My argument is, when you're so great at one thing, I can live. Dennis Rodman was such a great rebounder, I could deal with your offense. But Lamar Jackson concerns you a little on the throwing.
Well, it's just specifically the control of the ball. And I'm the first to say we need to slow down these expectations and the pace at which we expect people to be at certain points. We need to slow down with these young guys. Because he was an MVP in his second year, I think the expectation is that now it's Super Bowl, and now the reality is it takes some time to develop the control of the ball. And he's the most exciting athlete at the position in the sport, no questions asked. But even on completions, it's little detailed accuracy. It's a little low. It's a little bit behind. We see him last night miss a couple throws, but a lot of guys miss some throws.
Can he get better at that?
100%. So I look at Lamar and I go, he's not in a position right now to, I think, win a Super Bowl because of accuracy, because he's going to be going against the guys that we're going to, Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, these guys later. But that's absolutely in front of him. And one big offseason of developing control of the ball takes him to another level than he's even been at yet. And that's the level that these other guys like Patrick have been at.
Six years in the NFL, Jordan Palmer is joining us. Did you ever think, working with Josh Allen, he would be this good?
Not this soon. I'll be honest. Everybody works hard. Everybody cares. And there are levels to that. But he's a perfect example of. There's a handful of spots in the league. Buffalo's one of them. Baltimore, Kansas City, the Rams, where they have it right. They have built around the young quarterback. They got the young quarterback, the GM, the head coach. It's all put together. And with Josh, he's worked really hard. He's developed. He's ahead of a lot of people's schedule if there was one. But he's also in a spot where Brian Dable, Brandon Beane makes these moves to get him, and then they build around him. They get Mitch Morse, the center who was with Patrick Mahomes and Stephon Diggs, and it's all the pieces coming together. The other quarterbacks in the room, Ken Dorsey, the quarterback coach. So Josh Allen deserves a lot of credit for his success, but what Terry and Kim Pagula have done to not just go get him, but the pieces that are around him, he really is in one of the most desirable situations that you can be in. And he's taking advantage of it and eliminating mistakes and getting better, I think, each week right now.
Yeah, I mean, if his coordinator, head coach, and GM were on the market, they would get scooped up in 1 second. That's when you know you have the right people. Jalen Hurts, were you surprised how effective it was?
I'm not surprised at how he handled this situation. I believe that success leaves clues. You can study success. And I believe that successful people more often get behind a successful behavior than they do just a successful trait or talent. And with Jalen Hurts, you got to go, like in high school, he just kind of won. And then when he went to Bama and at a time before Tua was there, they weren't getting the number one recruit in the country at quarterback.
No, they were kind of getting guys that didn't even get looked at by NFL teams.
You know what I mean? Like these guys had a lot of success there. And so Jalen, but he just he ran the ball efficiently. He never cost his team the win, and he took advantage of opportunity. So he did that until Tua took over, and we all watched that. And then he went to Oklahoma, and he did the exact same thing. So success leaves clues. He's had success at every phase. So him getting in a situation where a team's in a little bit of turmoil, they're playing against another good team, he's got weapons around him. Yeah, I was not surprised that he ran the ball efficiently, didn't cost his team the game, and handled the moment really well, because that's what he's always done.
You know, we're always looking for the next new thing in football technology, and maybe we're forgetting about Deshaun Watson, you think?
Yeah, I think it's important for anybody who loves the storylines and talking quarterbacks. I sure do. I know you do too. To just pause. This is a big picture. Just pay attention to Deshaun Watson this year, because in my opinion, this is as bad as it will ever get. This is the worst situation, of course, he's ever been in, but he ever will be in again, because he's the type of leader and champion. And the aura that in high school he won championships in basketball and football. He played good enough to win 2 championships in college. He was 33-3 as a starter.
Wins his division in the NFL.
Wins his division every year he's done it. He did in his rookie year because he tore his ACL. But the only times he hasn't won is when he's gotten hurt, which is only twice. And so I look at the GM, the head coach, Hopkins, all the movement, all the chaos. This is the most enticing employee of the NFL to work with right now. If you're a GM, you want this job. If you're a coach, you want this job. If you're a free agent wide receiver, you want to go play for this team. So This right now, and him playing at the level he's playing at with what's around him, this is as bad a situation as he's going to be in. So if you're a fan of quarterbacks, watch how he continues to handle this through the season, and then what he does very quickly in Houston, because they're going to start putting some pieces together, and he knows how to be a champion. He is one. He's going to build a championship there at some point.
Baker Mayfield sees me as his arch nemesis. What do you make of where he's at?
Well, we talked about this last time. I believe the two most important traits in a quarterback playing well early is confidence and maturity.
Maturity's a big deal.
It's a huge deal. Now, I also believe that the way you live your life off the field directly mirrors the way that you play the game on the field. You don't have guys that live completely buttoned up and detail-oriented on the field and then just throw it wherever off the field. You don't have guys that his life is out of control and then play the game the way that Tom Brady plays it. I haven't seen it.
Right.
And so Baker's off the field antics in college and coming out match the way he played. He's a walk-on twice and he's a Heisman finalist 3 times. Wins it once. But what we've seen is the maturity off the field. You've talked about it, and the immaturity on the field has showed up the first 2 years. What I am seeing right now is the confidence has always been there. He's always had confidence in himself.
Yeah.
But I think the Browns have confidence in him. That Bengals comeback, that 2-minute drive, and I think his team, his organization, his play caller has as much confidence in him as he does. But the maturity, I mean, this clip from here the other night, it's 4th and 8 or 3rd and 8. He scrambles to get 4.
Great play.
It's a mature play. Get 4, get a piece back, and then on 4th and 4, instead of just running for it on the first down, he could have totally ran for this on the first down. He steps up in the pocket, and he's got the confidence right there to just step up and rip it. That's 4th and 4.
Yeah.
He can run and get 5 yards.
Yeah.
So the confidence and the maturity, I'm seeing it show up off the field and on the field, and he's doing it with a rushing attack and a defense, and they're getting hot at the right time.
Okay, so you work with all these quarterbacks. I DM'd Joe Burrow because I told him how much I love him. He's such a good kid. You've worked with Joe, and he's going to be great. He just gets it, right? Like, he's fine.
Yep.
Give me a college quarterback under the radar, and I'll throw one to you. I saw this weekend. I thought, why aren't you talking about him? So give me yours.
You're going to watch Clemson. You're going to watch these guys. Cincinnati's playing Tulsa this weekend. Desmond Ridder. He's going to be the winningest quarterback at University of Cincinnati. He's got a chance to go undefeated, and he is eerily similar of Jordan Love. If he decides to come out this year, he's eerily similar to Jordan Love, except he's a far more dynamic runner. And he's very mature and he's very confident, which I love. But he's got a chance to win a championship, finish this season undefeated. They may get an SEC team in a bowl game. That's a chance to play it, level up. Senior Bowl after that if he gets that invite. Now all of a sudden you got a guy where that's how you finish your college career. A champion, undefeated, putting together games like that. And I see a lot of things in his game that all of them translate to the NFL. He's a guy that not many people are talking about that should be.
Jordan Palmer, 30 seconds. Left. I like the kid at UCLA. Went to Bishop Gorman High School. My daughter went to class with him. She's like, Dad, kids loved him. Everybody wanted to be around him.
Yeah, great dude. Dorian Thompson-Robinson. He played wide receiver behind Tate Martell.
That's right.
He only played quarterback
1 year of high school.
Really, and got yanked at halftime because they crushed everybody. So he didn't really play a whole lot before Chip Kelly got a hold of him. He's got a bright future too.
He does. He was 30 of 37 this week, and it's funny because my daughter went there, and Tate Martell was the star quarterback. He was the backup, and I asked her, and she said, Dad, there's just certain people gravitate to, and they're like, he's one of them. I thought this week. He took a huge step up for him. I mean, I'm sitting there watching and getting texts from buddies going, who's that kid? Yeah. Jordan Palmer, Quarterback Summit, helping young people. This is my favorite source. They really are.
Thank you.
You've replaced many GMs who I'm just over. Great seeing you, buddy. Discovery app is coming soon. Discovery Plus. Next year. New streaming channel. Hour 3 next.
Contact World is a technology and media company dedicated to improving public health, and our podcast is our opportunity to dive into hot topics that are relevant to you, from contact tracing to vaccines to social and racial justice. We may not have all the answers, but you deserve to know what goes on in your neighborhood and the decisions that affect you and your family's health. I'm Justin Beck. Join me and my co-host Catherine and Deep D as we seek truth in health. Listen to Contact World, the podcast, on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Do you like fresh out of the oven chocolate chip cookies? Do you love wholesome heteronormative lifestyles? Do you like pretending that menstrual cycles just don't exist?
Then you'll hate Tampon Rock. Tampon Rock is a scripted comedy podcast, kind of like
friends, except gay and with black people. So, actually, really not like Friends.
Right. But it is about friends. And it's a musical, sorta. But that's all the time we have, so...
Listen and follow Tampon Rock on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
You already know that the challenge is the most heart-pounding competition show on television. But do you ever wonder how challenge competitors are selected or which challenges were too dangerous for TV? Well, you can learn all that and so much more on MTV's official challenge podcast. Hosted by your girl Tori and me, Anissa. We're giving you the inside scoop on the brand new season of the challenge. Let's go, baby. Listen to MTV's official challenge podcast on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Thanks for listening to the Herd Podcast. Be sure to catch us live every weekday from 12 to 3 Eastern, 9 to noon Pacific on Fox Sports Radio and FS1. Find your local station for the Herd at foxsportsradio.com or stream us live every day on the iHeartRadio app by searching Herd.
You're listening to Fox Sports Radio.
One of my favorite guests, Super Bowl champ, 5-time Pro Bowler, first-round pick, 12 years in the NFL. Belichick loved him. And he's actually calling a fascinating game. So he's got, for Fox, he's got the Eagles and Jalen Hurts against Kyler Murray and the Cardinals.
That's
which
a good
will be, if I'd have told you 10 years ago in the NFL, you'd have a 5'9" guy running around and Jalen Hurts, you'd be like, in the NFL? That sounds like a Big 12 game. That is the new NFL, and Aqib Talib, former NFL great, is now joining me live. So let me start with this. Everybody bags on Lamar, but I've always had this theory. Dennis Rodman was such a great rebounder. I can deal with the fact that he couldn't shoot a jumper. Lamar is so gifted as an athlete, I can deal that he's not a top 10, 12 passer. Or am I wrong? Do you think his inability to throw a beautiful football will ultimately be his downfall?
Oh, never, man, never. Lamar's special, so you just let special guys be special. So if he's going to be 12th or 15th in the pass, and I'm always going to have a guaranteed top 3 rushing defense, I'm taking that any day. I'm taking that, man, because in December and January, you want to be running the ball good and be playing defense if you plan on winning the Super Bowl. So I think he got the formula to win a Super Bowl.
So I don't know if you ever faced Michael Vick. I think he's actually quicker than Michael Vick. But what was your theory on facing running quarterbacks like Lamar? What did they create that was tough for you?
Man, we hated it because they create. First, they dictate how we got to play. We almost can't play man against these guys. You know what I'm saying? Because a spy can't tackle Lamar or a spy can't tackle Vick by itself. So we almost, if you're a man team, it almost makes you play zone because you don't want everybody with their back. Turned against these quarterbacks, so
right.
They dictate how you have to play them, and then just guys who could create that extra second, man. DBs hate it. We want to guard for 2.8 seconds and be looking for the football. So now we got to guard for 3.8 seconds, 4 seconds. That 1 second is the world to us. You know what I'm saying? So it's just that extra second that he create, man. It's a pain for DBs.
So this week you have Jalen Hurts against Kyler Murray. They also both run. Kyler throws a really pretty football. Like, size up. Jalen Hurts and Kyler Murray. Who do you prefer? What do you see when you call the game this weekend?
Man, I probably, if I was drafting, it was starting a franchise. It's hard not to take Kyler, man. He's just super special. He's fast. He's quick. He run the ball. Now Jalen Hurts can run the ball as well. But I think, man, collectively, man, those guys are so calm. They true pros, man. They not shockers. Me and Rondé Barber used to call the quarterbacks who panic and we used to call them shockers, right? They not shockers. They always calm. Even when they get at a dude, they right back calm. They score a touchdown, they celebrate, they right back calm. So, man, I feel like that's control of the game. Those guys got great command, great control of the game. And that's why they've been successful their whole life.
You know, I watched Tampa this weekend, and you played in Tampa for 5 years, and they've always had, my entire life, I covered them when they had Warren Sapp, Rondé Barber early, Derek Brooks. They've not always been the best team, but they've always had talent. And I watched this Tampa team, and it just looks like a collection of great ballers.
Right.
I still can't figure out what they are offensively. Did you go back to your career? Was there a single team when you honestly thought you had tons of talent, but it never cinched up. It never was going in the same direction?
I'll say the closest thing that I was to that was probably my first year in Denver. We brought a whole bunch of guys in. It was, you know what I'm saying, it was big names everywhere. But, you know what I'm saying, we didn't really hang out with each other. We was kind of still learning each other, getting to know each other. And we had a cool season. We lost in the first round of the playoffs. We lost in the divisional round against Andrew Luck and the Colts. But we was expected to do so much better. So a divisional round exit, that was, not up to par for us, man. So I'll say the closest thing that I got to that was definitely that Broncos team, man. And it was just, we didn't know each other. You see, 1 year after everybody know how Lee is, we know how Vaughn is, we started hanging out. Now the camaraderie in the locker room, the camaraderie on the field was cranked all the way up. You know what I'm saying? So that was the closest thing that I got to a team like that.
The Pittsburgh Steelers can't run the football. And 5 of the last 7 games, Aqib, they don't even try. So one of the reasons I like you as a player, and I like Jalen Ramsey for the same reason. You're physical. Even though you're corners, you're physical. I think in December and January, it is hard to win as a finesse team.
Definitely.
Tell me, when you face a team that can't run the football like Pittsburgh, what was the advantage for you as a defensive player?
Well, first, I think with Pittsburgh, they don't run the football, but they throw so many screens and quick passes to Juju. Them are like runs to me. So if you take the 8 of those they throw a game and you compare it with, you combine it with their 13 runs, that's 20 carries almost to me. You know what I'm saying? But when the teams don't run the football, I like it, man. I like it. It let us, really run us, especially if the quarterback is a guy like Ben. He's really not going to move that much. They're not running the ball. We can sit back in all our 2 deep to our 2 high coverages. Let us play 2-man. Confuse the quarterback. You don't know if it's cover 1 or if it's 2-man. You know what I'm saying? So it really lets us. It lets DBs and that back end, that back 7. It really lets us, disguises and it let us really play ball.
So I watched Baltimore and Cleveland last night, and I think they're good teams. I don't think they're Super Bowl teams. A team that I think is kind of fascinating is Buffalo. Now, most people think Kansas City's the better team, but what I like about Buffalo is they feel like they're young and they're striving to be great. Here's what concerns me with Kansas City, is that they're so talented. They're like the Warriors when Kevin Durant, Stephen Clay, and Draymond play together. They are so good that sometimes there's no urgency. Did you ever play on a team that was so gifted? There were Sundays, Aqib, that it was hard for you to stay focused as a favorite.
No, I don't think so, man. I think the teams that I played on that was so gifted was my Patriot teams, and how that building is ran, it's just impossible to get comfortable over there. It's just impossible. You will never get comfortable over there. Tom was there, and he's a GOAT, but he still wasn't comfortable over there. So, you always going to want to work over there. And then our Broncos team, while we had Peyton, was one of those type of teams, and I think year 1, we was learning each other. Year 2, we really meshed in, and we knew our window was closing, so we worked hard, man. We worked super hard every day to try to win that Super Bowl, and we did. So, I don't know, man. I don't think I've never been. That ain't in my motto, though. I don't let guys get comfortable on my team. I'm always challenging guys. I'm always the loud one out there at practice getting things started. So you got to compete.
The Rams secondary, Jalen Ramsey. I want you to talk about Jalen because, like you, he's aggressive. He's trying to pick the ball off and he's trying to score. There's an Ed Reed, although Ed was a safety. When you look at Jalen Ramsey, what do you see? What part of his games do you see that you really like?
I really like the versatility, Colin. He can play zone, he can play left, he can play right, he can play man, follow a guy, you know what I'm saying? And take him out the game and strap him on the line, press man. He can play left, right, slot. I just feel like he can tackle. You're not going to run at him and make him crack replace all day because he can't tackle, because he can tackle. So I just like the versatility, man. He like you said, he reminded me of myself. You can do everything, man. I played on zone schemes, man schemes, and I'm a tackle. So that's exactly what Jalen does, man. And with that, with those attributes, you can play for anybody. You can play in any system, and all the coaches are going to love you.
It is interesting. Almost every good team in this league, Kansas City, Green Bay, Seattle, Buffalo has a star receiver. So what you're seeing now in this DK Metcalf, DeAndre Hopkins world, they're bigger. They're 6'4", they're 6'5". Did you prefer a bigger receiver, a smaller? Who gave you trouble in the NFL? What body type and prototype, Aqib, gave you trouble?
Oh, I hated the small guys, Colin. I hated the T.Y. Hiltons. When I name my best receivers, I always throw T.Y. Hilton in there. Guys be like, T.Y.? I'm like, man, it's that little body fast. When they shifty and fast, and they can run straight. They got great straight ahead speed. So, I mean, like, a guy like Wes Welker, he's shifty, but he's not the fastest vertically. You know what I'm saying? So, it wasn't that much trouble. But a guy like T.Y., he's shifty and he can go. A guy like Antonio Brown, they shifty and they can go. Those are the guys who I used to hate guarding, those kind of guys, man. But bigger guys, I love guarding bigger guys. You're big, you're a little stiff, you want to jump ball, that's right up my alley. I can do all that.
So if you face...
I never had a problem.
Were you a trash talker with a Devontae Adams or a DK Metcalf? Do you try to intimidate them?
I don't know if I try to intimidate them, but I just have fun, Colin. Football is fun. So we gonna talk. If I do something good, we're gonna talk about it. If you do something good against me, I'm probably gonna still be like, you got me right there, bro. We just gonna talk about it. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if we see. I never been one to like trash talk. I'm excited and it's more positive talk and all fun where we can shake hands at the end of the game.
I love you, man. 12 years in the NFL, Super Bowl champ, 5-time Pro Bowler, Aqib Talib. He is doing the Eagles-Cardinals game Sunday at 1 Eastern on Fox. As honest as anybody and as real as anybody I bring on the show. Good talking again, bud.
Appreciate it, Colin. Take care.
Yeah, he's got A plus D1 is his gym in Texas. A plus D1. He's doing that from his gym right there. He's got his act together.
Hey everyone, it's Michelle Williams, and I'm so excited to launch my brand new podcast with you. Checking in with Michelle Williams, where my guests and I get real as we share the ups and downs of our mental health journeys, and I'd love for you to join me. Right now, I'm still on my journey, but I gotta share some real issues because guess what? As I was sharing my favorite food, as I was sharing my favorite clothes and designers, I was struggling. We can laugh and learn, and most of all, I really hope to inspire you to go on this journey with me to better mental health. This is going to be your church, your turn up, and everything in between. So join me on my brand new podcast, Checking In with Michelle Williams. It's a safe space for every kind of person. Listen to Checking In with Michelle Williams on December 22nd on The Black Effect on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
You already know that The Challenge is the most heart-pounding competition show on television. But do you ever wonder how challenge competitors are selected or which challenges were too dangerous for TV? Well, you can learn all that and so much more on MTV's official challenge podcast. Hosted by your girl Tori and me, Anissa, we're giving you the inside scoop on the brand new season of The Challenge. Let's go, baby. Listen to MTV's official challenge podcast on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
M-Drive, a lot of opponents we face this year. Age is one of them. One scoop every day. Elite Nutrition, mdrivestart.com. Great. Smoothie in the morning. Joy Taylor with the news.
Herd on the news. This is the Herdline News.
So there's been some rumors swirling that Jim Harbaugh could be heading to the NFL next season, but he's still working on bringing in a strong recruiting class in case he remains at Michigan. And Harbaugh said that when high school players ask him about his future with the school, he tells them his plan is to stay at Michigan. Now, I don't know what else he would be telling them.
Well, tomorrow is a big signing day, so at least until tomorrow, you'd want to make sure, the downside, Joy, to coming to college out of the NFL is that these college coaches who have never been to the NFL can use that against you. Like by year 3, they're like, he's gonna go to the NFL. So I think the one thing about Harbaugh, he's kind of a ladder climber that people use against him in recruiting is, they weren't as good as everybody thought in Michigan. He may go back to the NFL, and you can lose a lot of players in recruiting that way.
Well, yes, and that's definitely a factor, and I'm sure there are people who are recruiting against Harbaugh who are using that, as they should. I mean, This is recruiting, it's a very competitive space. You're only competing for a certain you're a kid that's going to Michigan or you're committed to Michigan or seriously considering going to Michigan, you have to consider what other options are on the table. Like, at the end of the day, it's still Michigan. It's still a prestigious school. You're going to get a great education. The alumni base there is incredible. Like, so even if Jim Harbaugh's not there, you know they're going to bring in another coach who is going to have the same demands of excellence and maybe unrealistic expectations of winning that Harbaugh has.
Yeah, it's always been one of those things where I always think if I had a kid, I'd want him to choose the school over the coach.
Right.
I say that, but if Alabama's had a lot of bad coaches, and I would say go play for Saban, but they've had multiple coaches, I would say this isn't the time to go to Alabama. So the coach does have a unique influence in the decision.
Right, and no disrespect to Alabama, but I mean, Alabama and Michigan are not
Michigan's
the same school level.
Yeah, I mean, as in terms of
education.
Yeah, I mean, Michigan is a great national university.
Yes. Again, no disrespect to Alabama, but like it's just different. Like it's a different education you're going to get. There's a different degree. So I don't know. Like I have nephews that play football. My brother played college
Where are
football.
they going to play?
They haven't committed yet, but they both play for St. Thomas Aquinas. Playing the States this weekend. Shout out Isaiah Mason. But yeah, I would consider the school obviously first and foremost because you have to consider where you're going and the kind of education you're going to get. Certain schools, it's really the coach. But I think Michigan's going to have a good coach regardless. I also don't think Harbaugh's going to the NFL.
You're doing not right now. No.
So Zion is entering his second NBA season with no limitations, and it showed in his first preseason game. He scored 26 points, 11 rebounds, just over 33 minutes, and he only played 33 minutes for 3 times in his rookie season. So they are not having him on a minute restriction.
What does his body look? God, he is so...
He kept the weight off that he lost. So he looks good. He said after the game that it felt different but great to be out there for extended stretches. They beat the Heat 114-92. Tyler Hero had 17.6 assists and 5 rebounds as well. I mean, it's preseason basketball, but you want to see him out there moving around. I like that they don't have him on the minutes restriction as well.
You know what I love about his game? You know, the NBA, it's you know, most golf swings look kind of the same, and most people throw the ball looks kind of the same. The NBA, there's artistry to it. Like, Michael's jumper doesn't look like Steph's jumper. Zion's game is so different. It's that power step. He's leaning away. He's leaning in. He's using his body as.
He's just so explosive too.
It's such a unique game. He does that classic power move. He's never stationary. It's always leaning in, leaning away. It's a kind of a fascinating game. It doesn't remind me of anybody in the NBA.
I'm really excited to watch him this year, especially if they're gonna just
what did
let
he
him go
average
out and
last
play.
year? 21. What did he average again?
Not sure.
He didn't play a ton of minutes, but I think his average was over 20. I think points per minute, it was way up there.
Gotta enjoy the artistry, though.
Oh, no, he's...
Kyrie would agree. Just enjoy the art.
Yeah, listen, I'm okay being an artist. Just talk to the media with your responsibility since you signed the CBA that forced you to talk to the media.
He averaged 22 and a half last year.
Does everybody understand? 22 and a half for a rookie in the NBA.
In 28 minutes.
By the way, on a team that had another couple scores. Brandon Ingram was in the 20s.
Like the new coach this year, they're going to be an exciting team. So Justin Herbert is having a spectacular rookie season despite his team's 4-9 record, and he's closing in on a big rookie record. He has 25 touchdown passes so far this season. If he throws 3 more in the Chargers' last 3 games, he will set the record for most touchdown passes in a rookie season. Baker Mayfield currently holds the record with 27. They play the Raiders this Thursday night.
Oh, well, then he's going to get. That is a strangely alluring game.
It is. Well, it's a must-win for the Raiders.
It's their season. Here we go, Raiders, because now Miami's winning, Cleveland's winning, the Colts are winning. That Ravens just won. So the bottom of the AFC playoff, the door is closing on the Raiders. Have to win Thursday.
I do think it could be kind of interesting if the Chargers win out too. What that means for Anthony Lynn.
Oh, I think he's done.
I think he is, but this is a really interesting game. But I mean, is he rookie? He's rookie of the year, is he?
Chase Young, Justin
offensive
Jefferson.
rookie of the year.
Well, I mean, if you set the rookie touchdown record, you'd get it. I don't think wins. Like, the one thing that doesn't matter for a rookie record
is wins. Yeah, especially the quarterback position.
Like Joe Burrow to me was the leader before he got hurt, and he was losing all his games. Yeah. Joy of the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Lie News.
By the way, my conspiracy theory yesterday was, let's just say it wasn't put to bed, John. Bill Belichick, I said, just think about this. Belichick thinks about everything. He wanted to draft left-footed punters because it gives a different spin, and we get him 1 or 2 fumbles a year. This is a guy that drafted a rugby player. Bill Belichick thinks of everything. Week 17, they play the Jets. Belichick plays Jarrett Stidham. Hey, we're out of the playoff race. I want to see if this kid can play. Jarrett Stidham against Sam Darnold. If the Jets win, they do not get Trevor Lawrence. And why does that matter? And you could say, well, Belichick's too competitive. Well, it depends on the time frame. Yes, he's too competitive to lose for the next 8 years because they have Trevor Lawrence in their division, Tua in their division, and Josh Allen in their division. That's if New England beats the Jets in Week 17. You're going to find on the market somebody close to Trevor Lawrence or Josh Allen. I'm going to start with no. Because so Belichick may be competitive, but what's the time frame? Everybody I know, I'm competitive, you're competitive. Have you ever once in your life taken a brief step back to take 2 forward?
It's a long game.
It's the long game. So I'm saying, so yesterday he was asked about replacing Cam, and he goes, we're not there right now. You know, sometimes I get tired of being brilliant. Gives me a headache. All right, coming up next, Baker versus Lamar. We look at the careers going forward, the records, who will do what. I'll make my predictions coming up next.
Be sure to catch live editions of The Herd weekdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific on Fox Sports Radio, FS1, and the iHeartRadio app.
Hey there, it's Leanne Rhymes. You know, these days it's pretty easy to feel way too overwhelmed and disconnected, not only from each other but ourselves. My new podcast, Holy Human, focuses on living our best, fullest lives by expanding into our most complete and whole selves. I'd love you to join me as I sit down with people who I've found to be some of the world's most inspiring and enlightening motivators, healers, and wise souls. Together, we'll make more sense of this crazy existence we all share, ourselves and each other. Listen and follow Holy Human with me, Leanne Rhymes, on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcast, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
You're going to come into a new season of joy and fulfillment like you've never seen. Hi, I'm Joel Osteen. I have a daily podcast where I talk about overcoming obstacles, accomplishing dreams, and becoming all you were created to be. You were made for more. You have new levels in you. There are seeds of greatness waiting to spring forth. You can't think negative thoughts and live a positive life. And on my daily podcast, I'll help you get your mind going in the right direction. You may have had some disappointments in the past, but this is a new day. Chains that have held you back are being broken. Doors are going to open that you never dreamed would open. Now do your part. Keep feeding your hopes, feeding your dreams. Don't use your energy to feed your history. Use your energy to feed your destiny. It's inspiring, uplifting, and encouraging. I think you'll like it.
Listen to the Joel Osteen Podcast on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Discovery Plus, new streaming service, starts next year. Real life entertainment from your favorite brands plus exclusive originals. Discovery Plus. Shows flown by today. Peter King, James Harrison, Jordan Palmer, and my fave Aqib Talib stop by in our herd hierarchy, which we'll give you before the before the start of Speak for Yourself. So, I mean, last night was top 5 Monday Night Football game in my memory. Rams-Chiefs was the last Monday Night Football game that was that good. And so, you know, you watch Lamar, who's a very unique talent. Baker is more of a traditional pocket guy who can move a little. For the record, Baker's thinner than last year, looks way more athletic than last year. We said last year we thought he looked puffy. Baker now, I think, has lost weight. He moves a little bit better. I thought last night he had a couple moves out to the right side. I was like, he's got a little speed.
Carrying all those groceries.
That's right. He's really cut down. So here we go. We're going to call it Baker or Lamar.
more games this season, Baker or Lamar?
I'll go with Baker. He's got 9, Lamar's got 8, and in week 17, Baker and Cleveland play Pittsburgh. The Steelers could be locked into the number 2 seed, and if they have some players that are banged up, they could rest them. So I'm going to say Cleveland, and I think today Cleveland's a better team than Pittsburgh anyway.
Who wins a playoff game first, Baker or Lamar?
I would say Lamar. First of all, Lamar's already been in 2 playoff games, so he's got playoff experience. And the second thing is, this is a top 5 defense. Now, they fell apart last night in the secondary, but I find it really hard to win in the playoffs, especially in the AFC with Cleveland's back end. Even if you outplayed a team in your Cleveland playoffs, you're going to face a Josh Allen, a Derek Carr, a Patrick Mahomes, maybe a Tua. I just think you can't be that bad. It's like we always talk about baseball. You cannot have a bad bullpen. Doesn't matter how good you are. If you're leaking runs in the 7th, 8th, and 9th, you can't win a World Series. Cleveland's defense, even if they outplay teams, is so bad on the back end, I don't see them winning a playoff game as they're currently constructed.
Who wins the AFC North next?
Well, I would say Lamar because they won it last year. Their salary cap situation is very good next year, and the Browns haven't won it since the 80s, so that's late 80s, but yeah.
Who throws more touchdowns in their career, Baker or Lamar?
Surprising on this, and I'll give you my reasoning. First of all, Lamar has a higher touchdown percentage, 6.8, than Baker, 5.2. Remember, Baker, because they've surrounded him with this fortress of wide receiver, tight end talent, will probably never have this much talent again because their cap situation is not great next year and beyond. And they're going to have to pay Baker eventually money. Whereas Lamar already has more right now. He had 36 touchdown passes last year, and that's the weakness of their team, I could argue, is wide receiver. I also think Lamar's ability to scramble and force defensive backs to have to cover for longer will create more. I mean, Baltimore's a big play offense, and a lot of that's because Lamar's running wild, you have to leave your coverage, and guys are wide open.
Who beats the Chiefs first, Baker or Lamar?
Good luck for either. I would say Lamar. 2 of their 3 losses have been one possession. We've overstated Kansas City beating Baltimore. Baltimore's been competitive in 2 of those games.
Who will have more fourth quarter comebacks?
In their career?
Baker or Lamar, yeah.
Now, this seems like an obvious one. It's not a shot. Baker, because they're going to be trailing late. I mean, if you look at the last 15 years, one of the things Baltimore does exceedingly well is draft. They draft, what does that mean? They've almost always in my life had good defenses. I mean, when has in Baltimore been effective defensively? Translation. You're not trailing big in games. So my guess is Cleveland's history of drafting isn't as good. They've got a lot of money tied up on the offensive side. He's going to trail late and will have more opportunities for fourth quarter comebacks.
Who lasts longer with their current team, Baker or Lamar?
Lamar, number 1, he's been an MVP. That will resonate for years and years. Also, he's winning 79% of his games. So everybody in the building has been all in on Lamar from day one. I think now in the Cleveland building, they're in on him now. But there's still time to go. The other thing is, Joy, if you replace Lamar Jackson, you have to replace, they built the whole team around him. He is such a unique talent, you'd have to get a new coordinator. You would literally draft differently. Baker is a pocket passer who can move a little. You could easily, like a Jared Goff or a Baker Mayfield or a Matt Ryan, there's a lot of guys out there that can run that offense. You're asking, I mean, there's like 3 people on the planet that are built like Lamar that run that offense.
No, they've totally leaned into him. Who has the longer career?
This goes against what you'd think. Lamar. First of all, he's 23. Baker's 25. So there's the advantage there. The second thing is, you think Lamar gets hit more because he runs more. But Baker's been sacked more. Baker gets hit more. And, you know, I will say this. Lamar gets popped about once a game where you're a little uncomfortable. I've seen Baker get smoked multiple times because Baker sometimes thinks he's more athletic than he is and puts himself in harm's way. Lamar is so fast, it is hard to get a clean shot at him because your angles are usually poor because he's just so darn fast.
Who will win a Super Bowl?
I'd say neither.
Neither?
Yeah, I think Lamar's going to have a great career, but you're asking me, look at all these young quarterbacks. So Trevor Lawrence is coming in, Joe Burrow. Justin Herbert's in, Josh Allen's in, Patrick Mahomes in. Well, that's just the AFC. Now you're going to have Justin Fields, by the way, is going to be in the AFC. We know Pittsburgh will eventually draft another quarterback. In the NFC, you got Aaron Rodgers playing for you. And you got Russell Wilson. And you got Jared Goff and McVay. And you got Kyle Shanahan. And in the end, I just look at all these offensive coaches, all these quarterbacks. We got four new quarterbacks coming in. I would just take, almost outside of Kansas City, I would almost say maybe Green Bay because of Aaron Rodgers and Seattle, Russell Wilson.
But so much can happen. You have injuries.
Yeah, but I mean,
so if you had to choose between
I think Baltimore's structural foundation has been far superior to Cleveland's. So I would take Baltimore to Baltimore won a Super Bowl with a defense once, like not throwing the ball much down the field. So their history is they'll be in contention more than Cleveland. That's fair, right?
That's fair.
But Baker's going to dominate fourth quarter comebacks. By the way, Doug Peterson, talking about quarterbacks, Doug Peterson has named Jalen Hurts the starter. And it is, speaking of quarterbacks, it's interesting because the remaining games, so Jalen Hurts is 1-0. All right, I'll throw the game up. You tell me what you think. I think if he wins, it doesn't create a solution. It creates a problem. So they're at Arizona this week. The reason I like Arizona, because in practice every day they face a mobile quarterback.
Yeah, I like Arizona this week.
So Jalen's 1-1 at Dallas.
Like Philly.
So do I. 2-1. Washington.
I think it depends on who's playing quarterback. But if it's Alex, then I would probably lean Washington because they can win the division, so they have more to play for than Philly.
It is interesting though. If they split Arizona Dallas, he's 2-1. If they won Washington 3-1, and you get into this situation where, oh boy, what's the offseason like? Let me tell you, WIP radio is going all with who's winning now. Nick Foles 3 years ago was Tom Brady. So, you get into a situation.
Can you blame them? It's been a really rough season.
I used to always, or almost always, when a quarterback was coming into the NFL, I would say, I don't know if it'll be good. I'm to the point now where when quarterbacks come in, I'm like, yeah, it'll work. To some level. It's Paxton Lynch and Josh Rosen. Didn't work. Everybody else is kind of working.
Even Trubisky can mess around and win a game or two.
He's got a winning record.
Yeah.
Trubisky, I don't think they built him. If Tariq Cohen was playing this year and they had more juice offensively, Trubisky, again, athletically, if you have a good defense, you win games with Trubisky.
Yeah, to be clear, I'm not endorsing that.
No,
but it's possible.
Yeah, the ceiling's lower, but most of these guys, they're effective at some level. All right, good stuff. Aqib, Talib, Jordan Palmer, James Harrison, Peter King. Speak for Yourself is coming up next on a Tuesday live in Los Angeles for Joy and John. This is The Herd.
You're going to come into a new season of joy and fulfillment like you've never seen.
Hi, I'm Joel Osteen. I have a daily podcast where I talk about overcoming obstacles, accomplishing dreams, and becoming all you were created to be.
You may have had some disappointments in the past, but this is a new day. Keep feeding your hopes, feeding your dreams. Use your energy to feed your destiny.
Listen to the Joel Osteen Daily Podcast on the iHeartRadio app or wherever